Harry.
Hey, thanks a whole bunch. Hey, it's 3 o'clock. Hi, folks. I'm Larry Perry, and you're tuned in to the Magic Mechanic Radio Show. So you new listeners know, this is we call it an interactive automotive and mechanical advice program where we help you with your car problems and just about anything mechanical. And it's been our pleasure to do so for over 31 years. Me personally, I am an automotive shop owner, and I've been a master auto technician since 1982. To make the program work, we need your phone calls, and the lines are open at 844-580-9326. And I always tell folks, it's hard to remember somebody just giving you a phone number over the radio. So what I do is I try to make it as simple as possible. If you can remember the 844 part and the station that you're listening to, which is 580 WDBO, so it's just 844-580 WDBO, and that'll get you right on into the call office there, and they'll get you all lined up, and we'll get you on the air here in just a couple minutes. And remember, all of your phone calls and your car questions that is aired on the program, well, they get indexed and they get placed on our new Magic Mechanic YouTube channel. So other folks searching for answers like yours will be able to get the same needed information. And we've got folks that have been emailing us from Baghdad, Iraq, Russia. You can't imagine, not that I'm saying Russia's a good thing right now, but we even Ukraine, we get folks that visit the Magic Mechanic YouTube channel. So it's actually worldwide, and I hope that we help a few folks with their car issues no matter where they're at on this planet. Think about that. Folks will be able to play your car questions back anywhere in the world and many years from now. Whether it be a dash warning light, poor fuel economy, oil consumption issue, AC not working correctly, vibrations, warranty questions. I love antique and classic car issues. We do an awful lot of older vehicles at the shop, along with brand new ones as well, so... But I kind of grew up with the older cars. What are older cars now? They weren't when I was working on them years ago, So, but yeah, carburation. Like I said, I am probably one of the last foremost authorities on carburation, and not just a particular type of vehicle. Everything from Toyotas to old Datsuns to, all the old muscle car carburetors. Any of that stuff, quadrajets, it doesn't matter. All the old Hollies, I have been in the middle of all of them, and that's one of the main things we seem to run into with the older classic and muscle cars. So if you got any questions along those lines, I can probably help you with them. We answer the questions on any kind of car. I'm experienced and certified on just about every kind of vehicle they've ever made, whether it be gas, the hybrids, electric vehicles, and of course diesels. And remember, I have a complete database of all the recalls and those secret technical service bulletins consumers never get to see. And that I have those up to current date, from pretty much the 70s all the way up to now. So if there's a hidden TSB that a consumer needs to know about, I will darn sure spill the beans. How's that? All you need to do is give us a call. That's 844-580-WDBO. And you can give our producer the year, make, and model of your vehicle and a description of your problem. And you'll be placed on a brief hold, and we'll get to that call in the order that we receive it. Also remember, for immediate help, you can call the shop number, and you can speak to my general manager, JD. I believe he actually wears a headset. Now, I want you folks to picture this. This is just how dedicated this man is. He will be on his bass boat, literally fishing out in the middle of Lake Cypress with a headset on, connected to his cell phone, and of course the phones at the shop are forwarded to it. And he literally fishes and doesn't even break a stride while he's fishing, and answers your car questions, or if you need to try to get a car in the shop, or if you've got just anything, that he can help you with. He does that while he is fishing. Now, that's a heck of a guy, isn't it? Listen, if you want to call the shop and holler at JD, that number's 407 629-2661. I do want to mention our open mic option. They've slowed down a little bit over the last couple of weeks. We used to have this guy call in called Flounder. I'd love to hear another open mic from him. That guy is amazing. WDBO.com on your smartphone, and you can download the app, and you can leave us an open mic car question. The open mic thing is easy to do. All you do is go to WDBO.com on your smartphone. You click it. You're going to see a thing there for your open mic or whatever. You can click on it, and it'll record about a 30-second question. So, it'd be like I got a 2006 Lincoln Town Car, and, it stalls when I start it cold. Those types of questions. Just ask them real quick, and then we'll play those back at around 4:36 this afternoon during the second hour. And, we'll go ahead and play them, but that's how it works. And plus the open mic, not only do you have that, but the WDBO app also acts as a emergency weather radio, emergency traffic information, emergency just about anything. So it's really a good app to have on your phone, and you can turn it off if you want to. So it can get crazy, especially with the summer storms that come through here. You never know. Hey, listen, we'll get to those. You can also ask a car question by emailing me, Larry@magicmechanic.com. I can't guarantee I get to all of the emails during the show, but if I can't fit them in, I will answer it by the first of the week. All right, let's get, do you know who we're kicking the program off with today? Who was the first caller?
Let's kick with Rob from Barberville, who's got a Camry, and he says he wants to change his belt, but he's scared to do it. Rob, you're on with the Magic Mechanic.
Hey, Larry, thanks for taking my call. Great show. I have a 13 Toyota Camry with 90,000 miles on it, and I'm about to change the hoses, the thermostat, and the belt. I did get a Toyota brand thermostat. Should I also change the tensioner with that kind of mileage on it? The only belt I seem to be able to get on myself is a Dayco. So what's the trick on that with these other belts like the Gates and factory brand? I could, it just hours trying to get it on, but I seem to have changed the Dayco twice. And then should I use only a Toyota tensioner versus, say, just a generic tensioner?
Yeah.
Or should I just leave it? They're so good.
Yeah, Rob, I am. Boy, I'll tell you what. You must do a lot of listening to this program. But listen, I'm going to tell you, I am scared to death of aftermarket tensioners right now. You want to talk about something embarrassing? My neighbors, one of their vehicles is an '07 Honda Odyssey. And so when they need service done to it, they throw me the keys and say, take it in to work with you, So they had a serpentine belt tensioner that was making noise. So we get it down to the shop, and we go ahead and we put a tensioner on the daggone thing. And, we gave her back the car. She had it for like 3 days, and she called me up and she said, Larry, this thing's still making kind of the same noise. And I'm like, well, I put a stethoscope on the tensioner, so I knew that was what was wrong with it. So I go over there and I check the daggone thing, and sure enough, that tensioner's making noise. Well, I took it back to the shop, no big deal, we get a tensioner, it's making the same noise. So we put another one on it. And then she calls me up 3 days later, and guess what? The same exact thing. And here's my technician all along telling me and JD, just get an original equipment part. Well, the reason we didn't get it from Honda is they didn't have it in stock. So we had tried 2 aftermarkets. Well, I will tell you what, the third time around, we have learned our lesson. We put an original Honda one on there, and there's no more problem with it. Evidently, what had happened was when they manufactured those, they must have not put a drop of grease on the bearing whenever they were assembled. And we all know where the thing probably come from. Anyway, it's probably mass produced in China. So, somehow or other, it didn't get any grease, I guess, on the bearing. But when you say original equipment, when it comes to something like a belt tensioner, nobody wants to do that job twice. And in my case, you don't want to do it for free 2 times, plus the hassle of sending the parts back and getting credit for them. So, yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with that. When it comes to the belt, I'm not worried about the belt. Yeah, just about a Continental, a Dayco, a Gates, all those belts are good belts. You're really not going to have an issue with any of them, or I haven't seen any repetitive issues with them, in a service life of, say, 90 to 100,000 mile. I agree with that wholeheartedly. And as far as if you're replacing the hoses and stuff on it as well, the only thing I will tell you is make sure that if there is any plastic fittings, I don't care if it's if the thermostat cover on that engine is made out of plastic, make sure you buy one. Those are the type of plastic things that'll crack and you'll make you lose your coolant. Any of your heater hose assemblies that has plastic unions where they join together, make sure you get those. Order them, make sure you have them in hand, and make sure they're the right ones before you tear your car apart. But I'm just telling you, anything made out of plastic will get you in trouble at this daggone mileage. You can do all this maintenance and all these hoses, but if a piece of plastic breaks on that cooling system, it'll overheat the motor and ruin it. So make sure everything plastic on the cooling system, except for the radiator, and you can keep an eye on it. But these other plastic parts, they'll just break completely in two. You lose all your coolant in just a minute or two. So radiator starts seeping or leaking, you'll catch that. But these other plastic pieces on the cooling system, they're the ones that'll get you in trouble.
844-580-9326. To the phone lines we go. Nick from Whitford, you're up now. You got a 1988 Camaro. It sounds like it has been starting. You're live with the Magic Mechanic.
Yes, thank you for taking my call.
No problem.
I have been listening to your show for quite a while. You guys did some work on my IROC back in '06, so it's been quite some time. And this thing was my daily driver for 17 years, and then it pretty much sat in the garage. And I would, crank it up at least once a week, take it out around the neighborhood just to make sure it kept going. And 6 months ago, the battery went dead, the front tire went flat, and I, neglected it, and it hasn't started in 6 months. And I'm concerned now that if I try to force start this thing, that it's going to do more damage. And I think it may be a fuel pump issue. I'm not smelling any gas.
Yeah, I'm probably going to agree with you there. Nick, see, what happens is if you let a vehicle sit for, say 3, 4, 5 months, if it's got the ethanol fuel in it, that ethanol will separate from the gasoline. And it'll go to the very bottom of the tank. And that's why, it's kind of like when they have an oil spill. The oil spill, literally, oil is lighter than water. So oil actually floats on the water. Well, it's the same thing with water is heavier than ethanol fuel or any fuel. Water will go to the bottom. So when the ethanol separates from the gasoline, it turns into like a water, and it goes to the very bottom of your fuel tank. Well, you've got an electric fuel pump in your gas tank too, and that doesn't work out very well. It'll rust the impeller right straight up in that daggone electric fuel pump, and it'll lock it up, and it will not come back on. So, at this point, I really wouldn't try to, I could probably tell you how to get it to where it may get the fuel pump to work, even though it's been locked up. But the problem with it is all it's going to do is send all that crap in that gas tank right straight into the rest of your fuel system and probably cause you more problems. Best bet at this point, if you turn that key to the on position and you do not hear that fuel pump buzz for about 3 seconds, then I wouldn't do anything else with it until you drop the fuel tank, got all the old gas out of it, and put a brand new. Hopefully, you can still get an AC Delco fuel pump module that comes with the sending unit and then the factory fuel pump and everything. I would hope that we could still get that. But, that's the situation. The fuel pump is locked up. If it started and it ran fine 6 months ago and now you're dealing with this problem, that fuel pump has set in that fuel that has separated, and it's rusted and locked the impeller up inside of it, and it's not going to run. If you were to go and if that fuel pump was to have a little bit of a shock, it might take off and start working again. But the problem with it is, all it will do is just send all that right straight into the injectors, and it'll rust those up too. So I wouldn't do anything with it until, if you don't hear the fuel pump cycle when you turn the key to the on position, our next step, well, it's pull the fuel tank out. Take that sending unit and fuel pump module, right straight out of the top of the tank. Clean the tank out real good. And then, if there's rust inside the tank from this, you may want to get another fuel tank. But if it doesn't look rusty inside there, and you can take a light and look down inside. If it still looks pretty good in there and it's just the gas has gone bad, put the new fuel pump module in there, put you about 5 gallons of gas in it, cycle the key about 5 times on and off, and then on that 6th time, you'll hit that key and that thing will fire up just like it did 6 months ago. Nick, thank you so much for your call, and I hope this gave you some help.
And you can be like Nick and ask any of your automotive questions here on the Magic Mechanic Show by WDBO or leave an open mic in the WDBO app. We'll get to that segment in the second hour of the show. Now the Magic Mechanic himself, Larry Perry.
All right, let's. Who do we have on deck here? Who's next up?
We have George from Orlando who has a Mercury and he needs a valve adjustment. George, you're live with the Magic Mechanic.
Hey, Larry, this Scoop here, buddy.
Hey, George, how you doing this weekend?
Boy, I tell you, real good. Larry, on my Mercury 4.6 engine, is the valves ever need adjusting?
No, they are self-adjusting. They're hydraulic.
Oh.
It's not really the best way to describe it is on that particular engine. It doesn't really use a lifter per se that moves up and down. What it does is it uses what we call a follower, and it just sets in a bore and it gets oil pressure behind it. And that's what keeps a perfect adjustment between the rocker arm and the camshaft. Now, I will tell you this. On the 4.6s, which were just absolutely great engines, I have seen where vehicles that don't get driven a lot, where the fuel will set too long and maybe start breaking down. And what will happen is a vehicle that has set for any length of time, somebody will go and start it up, and that old fuel will go through the fuel injectors and be dispersed onto the valves. And then when you shut it off, there's moisture in the fuel. And what it'll do is it will actually start rusting up the valves in the valve guide, and a valve will stick. And when it does, the camshaft will come along because there's too much clearance, and it'll literally just knock the rocker arm right off of the follower or the lifter, and then you'll have a dead cylinder. And sometimes when that happens, it can actually bend the valve too. So you don't do. How many miles are on your car now, George?
68,000.
68, no miles at all. Listen, you're not putting a whole lot of miles on it. Are you running just regular ethanol fuel in it?
Well, one or Shell,
Yeah. I'm going to tell you, in your case, and you may already be doing this because you're an Amsoil guy. You might want to start treating your fuel. If you've got one tank of fuel in your car for over 2 or 3 months, George, it would be a good idea to add the Amsoil PI in with your fuel. What that will do is it'll give that fuel some extra lubrication and help lubricate your valve train. You see what I'm saying? So that way you wouldn't wind up with a situation like I had just described, because the valves will stick, and then when they do, it'll just knock the rocker arm right off the thing. And like I said, when that happens, it can bend a valve as well. And it's not anything wrong with the engine. It's just that those valves don't like moisture in your fuel. And with that ethanol in there and a vehicle that doesn't get a great, huge amount of driving, it can be detrimental to the engine, and it'll just surprise you one day. when it comes to a lot of the older engines, on some of the older Mercedes and stuff like that, with the primitive fuel injection systems a lot of them came with, I actually recommend folks to use some two-stroke outboard marine oil in with their gasoline just for lubrication for the valve system in these vehicles and to help protect the fuel system from the ethanol. So in some cases, the lubrication for these fuel systems and the valve train becomes extremely, extremely important. And a lot of folks don't know this. But in your case, I think, keeping some AMSOIL PI, which has got a lot of benefit. It helps lubricate the whole entire upper valve train of the vehicle. And in your case, see, that engine's not a direct injection motor. It still uses port injectors. So whatever comes out of those, the injectors, when it sprays fuel, it's going right on that intake valve. So when you got that going against you, you get some older fuel in there, some fuel that's starting to separate a little bit. It's when you've driven it and you shut it off, whatever moisture there is will actually start rusting up around the intake valve and the valve guide. And it'll stick that valve when you go to restart it, and the extra clearance will knock the rocker arms off of it. So we want to try to avoid that. But as far as a maintenance valve adjustment goes on that engine, there isn't one. Those are made to take care of their own. So they're what we would consider self-adjusting and no maintenance needed as far as the valve adjustment goes. George, like always, it's absolutely a pleasure to talk to you on Saturday afternoons, my friend.
Thank you, George. Thank you for that phone call. We're going to move things to the phone lines. Folks, we have open lines here, 844-580-9326. That's 844-580-9326. Let's go to Tim in Altamont Springs. Tim, you're on with the Magic Mechanic.
Hey, I have a 2015 F-150 V6 non-turbo. I'm wondering when I need to, with 72,000 miles, I'm wondering when do I need to have the serpentine belt changed and also the belt or chain for the valve train.
Okay. What engine do you have, Tim? Do you know what engine you have off the top of your head?
I think it's a 3.6. It's a non-turbo.
Okay. They had a 3.5, which was a turbo, and then they had a 3.7. You probably have a 3.7 if it's a non-turbo. I'm going to tell you like this. This is what we see in the industry and in the field. Guys that hang around a dealership a lot of them don't really know what an independent shop sees at 100,000 mile or 150,000 mile. They don't see the same things that an independent shop sees because, as a vehicle ages and it gets out of warranty, most people don't bring it back to the dealer for regular service. It's just, it's more inexpensive, and usually you get more experienced guys at the independents because they make more money with independents. So, we see a lot of 3.5 motors, and the 3.7s, there wasn't as many of those out there. In your case, all I can really do is compare it to the 3.5s that we deal with. Now, which are pretty much a very close similarity to each other. With the 3.5 motors, what I typically see is folks will come in usually at around 138, 145,000, and the complaint that they'll have is when they start it up cold, they will actually, on occasion, they will hear a little bit of a rattling type of noise. And then it goes away, and then they may not hear it again for, a month or two. And what that is, you've got tensioners that keep those timing chains tight inside that engine. And what happens is, as that chain wears and stretches, they don't normally break. But what happens is those tensioners are ratchet type tensioners. And what they do is they keep coming out until they can't come out no more. And the chain, of course, will still wear and deteriorate as time and usage goes on. And then it'll get to a point when that tensioner can no longer keep that chain as tight as it's supposed to. You will start hearing these rattle type of noises when you first start the engine up cold. Now, with 78,000 mile on this thing, or in the 70,000 mile range, I don't think you've really got a whole lot to worry about, for quite a while, because of the simple fact, I don't really see a problem with those particular timing chains until you get up to the high 130s into the mid 140s. So I think you got some time with that. Now, as far as the serpentine belt goes, on the front of the engine, at the mileage that you're at right now, 70, 80,000 mileage, I wouldn't be a bit opposed to going ahead and putting a new a new serpentine belt on it. Now, the reason is, see, that belt can still look pretty good, but it can be stretched, and that tensioner can be just about as far out as it can go. So we're not looking for a belt that's all dry rotted and cracked and falling apart. We're looking for a belt that has, an excessive amount of stretch in it over usage. And in your case, that's what I would be concerned with. And then when it gets time for you do it now at around the 70 to 80,000 mile range, and we already know, chances are, when you get up to around 140 with this thing, you're probably going to spend a little bit of money having the timing chain and everything else done on it, and at that time, it'll get another serpentine belt as well, and probably water pump and whatever else it'll need in the front of that engine whenever it comes apart. So, but right now, I go ahead and hang a serpentine belt on it. Make sure that, this is a good time to think about transmission service. If that's not been done, cooling system service, due to the age and the mileage that you have on the vehicle, those are things I'd highly recommend. And one of the things that you don't want to forget about, and everybody seems to overlook, is a brake system flush. Folks, this is not a gimmick, and the dealers aren't pulling your leg when they tell you need your brake fluid replaced. Brake fluid absorbs moisture right straight out of the air. And when it does, any moisture that gets into that brake system, and your brake system is vented, it has to be. If moisture gets in there, that moisture goes all the way to the bottom, as low as it can go. And that means your calipers, your ABS module, and wheel cylinders if it's an older vehicle. So having that stuff actually flushed out and new brake fluid put in is extremely important on these newer cars. Some of these anti-lock brake modules can run $4,000 and $5,000, all because somebody did not flush the brake system. Trust me, it's cheap maintenance, and those are things I would have you consider at this particular mileage. Tim, thank you so much for your call. Sounds like you're doing a good job there.
Now to the magic mechanic himself, Larry Perry.
Yeah, I was just going to let the folks know, this is probably one of our slower phone days, so if you all want to hop on board, 844 and the station that you're listening to, 580 WDBO. If you all want to go ahead and call in and get indexed, so to speak, we'll have you ready to hop on board during the second hour here, coming up right after the news at 4 o'clock. All right, let's head over to Fred. Fred, you got a boat. Let's work on it.
Hey, Larry, Fred, I've talked to you a couple times in the past, but the latest is that the engine, my port engine, I have two 350s in a big boat, and the port engine is overheating, and we went through new impellers, pumps, thermostats, all that sort of thing. But I ran across a new term yesterday that I hadn't heard before. It's called a heat sink. What can you tell me about a heat sink that's located near the coil?
Not anything that's going to cause the engine to run hot like that. On those engines, what year model are we talking about, Fred?
Well, they were installed in the boat in '88.
Okay.
So they replaced 327s.
All right. So these are carbureted 350s, right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, the manifolds on these, if they get plugged up, they can cause an engine to run too hot. Has anybody explained to you what happens if those get plugged up?
I can understand that. I don't know how I don't know. We haven't checked that, and I'm not sure how to check it except for just disassembly.
Yeah. Well, let me explain to you what will happen is over a period of time. Let's say those are original exhaust manifolds on that boat. See, the coolant is going to have to run through them in order to cool the exhaust down. And now what will happen is, see, if they get restricted, all the coolant flow coming through that engine is also going to be restricted. So it can't, if it can't flow through because the exhaust manifolds, that's the end of the coolant. It's got to run through the exhaust. If it doesn't do that to cool those manifolds down, that gets so hot they catch a boat on fire. So what you got to do is, if you get one that you don't have any other issues with, everything else looks good on it, because on the one that you have there, if I'm thinking right, probably a Mercruiser application, you will have what is known as a C pump. Now, your C pump is on the front of the engine, right?
Right.
Okay. It might be worth looking all the way down into the outdrives to make sure there's nothing restricted there. And you should be able to take one of the hoses off of that C pump. The one that actually feeds into the engine, and actually, put one of those outdrives in like a big barrel or something full of water, or put some good engine muffs on it, and see if that impeller is pulling water through the outdrive and pumping back out. That's going to be the first thing you want to do. A big garbage can or something like that you could set that out, tilt that outdrive down into, start it up in neutral, and see if it's pumping water right straight out of that C pump that's on the front of the engine. Now, if it's not pumping, you may have something plugged up in the outdrive, feeding the C pump. But now, if you get good water flow out of it, there's really, that's going to go into the engine. Then you've got your circulation pump, which is a typical automotive water pump that's actually circulating the water throughout the engine and then on out through the exhaust. So that's about as simple as it gets. I mean, I know that I've seen people run into issues with this, but if you don't have any head gasket problems, which is rare on those, in most cases, it's either going to be the exhaust manifolds are plug slap solid and the water can't flow out of them, nor can it flow through the engine at this point, or either something from the C pump on back through the outdrives is got a restriction somewhere. It may have sucked something up and maybe lodged up in there, who knows. But that's the route that you're going to have to take with it. First, put the outdrive in something, in some water. Even if you got to back it into a boat ramp, set that thing down. Take the hose, the output hose, off of the C pump. Start it up. It should come out of there like a fire hose, And if you got a good flow through it to go back into the engine, the only thing left is your circulation pump, which is your regular water pump on the front of the motor. And if the impeller isn't rotted off of it, which in the case of a Marine, that impeller should be a stainless steel impeller. And then, of course, somebody could have put an automotive one on there and there's no impeller left. Then the other issue is the exhaust manifolds. If they're plugged up, the water can't get out. So there won't be no flow. Fred, those are pretty simple instructions. I know there's a little work involved with it, but whatever you do, make sure you holler back at us and let us know what you all did find out. I'm sure there's somebody else out there in listener land that's probably got the same type of issue, and we appreciate your call.
In the second hour of the Magic Mechanic Show, here's the Magic Mechanic himself, Larry Perry.
Yeah, just want to touch base and let folks know, if you take a car in to an automotive shop just to get an idea of what's going on with it, folks, there's probably going to be a diagnostic charge. You know what? And it can run anywhere from probably $100 to $200, somewhere in that area. Here, well, we'll give you an idea of what's going on with it for the low, low price of free 99, as Chris used to say. So you can't beat the price, and I'm going to donate my time to help you. So take advantage of it. And we also want to welcome you to the second hour of the Magic Mechanic Radio Show. It's a show where you call in, you ask your automotive question, and you can't beat the price. Like I said, it's absolutely free. That number is 844 844-580-9326. Best way to remember it is the 844 and the station you're listening to, which makes it 844-580-WDBO. Go ahead and call in. We'll get your call and your question indexed, and we'll get to you here in just a few minutes. Also, we take your automotive questions and my comments, and we place them on our new YouTube channel so other folks can maybe find the same help that you seek. Plus, you can play it back anytime you want. That number again is 844-580-WDBO. Next caller will be second up. And to speak to JD at the Magic Mechanic Shop, that number is 407-629-2661. Folks, our sponsors are very important to the show. We all pitch in to bring you the program every week. So if you enjoy it, please patronize our sponsors and tell them you heard about them here on the Magic Mechanic Radio Show. That would be Orlando Auto Upholstery. Interior, convertible tops, carpet, seats, door panels, anything interior or convertible top-wise on any vehicle. Even commercial, industrial applications, RVs, ATVs, it doesn't matter. Visit them at OrlandoAutoUpholstery.com. Their number, real quick, is 407-898-2351. Amsoil synthetic lubricants for your car, truck, van, SUV, boat, motorcycle, tractor, bulldozer, lawn equipment, you name it. Amsoil makes a lubricant for it. You got to ask yourself a question. Does Amsoil warranty your engine against lubrication failure? If your oil does not do that, well, Amsoil does. And the reason they can do that is once you put Amsoil in an engine, you have discontinued the wear pattern that goes along that is considered normal on any engine. The graph literally goes straight across the board as opposed to heading down slowly to the right to the bottom until it's completely worn out. So it is literally a fountain of youth for an engine or a transmission. So consider that if you've got a vehicle that you want to keep around without it breaking the bank. That is the best protection I could give anybody with my past experience as far as wanting to keep a vehicle on the road and it not cost you a fortune to do so. To find out more, you can always go to amsoil.com. And if you want to get a specific viscosity recommendation from me, all you got to do is go to Larry at magicmechanic.com, and I will spec out exactly what oil viscosity that I recommend for your application to maximize your engine and transmission life. Next up is Jasper Engines and Transmissions. If you need a motor or transmission, folks, it's an expensive venture nowadays, and there's so many applications out there that just had so many problems. Replacing it with a used engine is a big waste of time in a lot of cases. So if you got a fleet vehicle or something along those lines, you want to, repower a vehicle and you want to keep it as opposed to, spending 5 times that much on a new one, consider a Jasper engine or transmission. And you say, why is this guy recommending those? Well, because we install hundreds of engines and transmissions, and Jasper is our #1 supplier. The reason for it being is when we get done with a Jasper engine installation or a transmission replacement, folks, those things come with a 100,000-mile nationwide warranty. That's parts and labor. You're not taking any chances whatsoever. And we have peace of mind, and so does our customers. It is a bulletproof warranty, and you're not taking any chances. Jasper's been around for, darn near 100 years now. So, they've got an impeccable reputation. And if they ever do have a problem, they're a stand-up company. They're going to take care of it. And that's all any of us as consumers can ask. Pay them fair money, get a good warranty, and stand behind it. And that's why we recommend the Jasper engines and transmissions. To find out more, you can go to jasperengines.com. And last but not least is my place, the Magic Mechanic Auto Service Center, located in Orlando, Florida. Engines, transmissions, brakes, suspension, steering, electrical problems, and of course, Amsoil synthetic lubricants. You can visit us at magicmechanic.com. Email me directly, Larry at magicmechanic.com. All right, we were talking a little bit. We had a call about a boat overheating a little bit ago. I believe it was an 88, who knows, probably a Chris Craft or something like that. two 350 engines in it. He said the engines had been replaced, I believe, from 327s to 350s. Probably got some old Mercruiser outdrives on it. And he has an overheating issue. And Cliff's been listening to the program, and evidently he's had experience with this particular issue. And Cliff, we'd like to hear what you have to say, and maybe fine-tune the advice we give the gentleman.
Yeah, Larry, you were skirting around the right area. I had this happen on several boats before, and I'd be running fast and it'd overheat. I'd slow up and run it at idle, and it'd cool down. And I couldn't figure out what was going on. I'd bring it back and took it apart, and the risers that come off the back of the motor, the exhaust risers, have holes, small holes around the periphery of the riser heading down to the exhaust and out the back of the boat. And those holes had gotten plugged up from pieces of slag from the riser castings. And it was restricted the water flow. And once I took that apart and cleaned that all out and put it back together, never had any problem with it yet. Yeah,
you were exactly right. Cliff, that's what I was referring to when I was telling him the exhaust manifolds. I figured it would be more layman term to tell him the exhaust manifolds as opposed to the risers. But what happens is they will get sand and debris. There's no fine filtration on the seawater that gets pumped in through an engine like that. And what happens is sand and silt, and, a lot of times we're talking salt water. It actually starts accumulating inside those risers, exhaust manifolds. And when it does, that actually stops the coolant flow going in through the engine and back out. You can only flow so much in there as it'll let you exhaust back out of the manifolds. And so you have to have that water flow through those manifolds, or they'll get so hot they could catch the daggone boat on fire. So they have to have it designed like that in order to be able to utilize that type of engine in a marine application. But you are 100% right. I think if we've got good flow coming out of the sea pump, and like I said, when you pull those manifolds off, the risers off, and you start looking in through where the coolant's got to flow through it, you'll have everything in the world, including fish skeletons, start falling out of that thing where it's got it plugged solid. We appreciate your call, and we definitely appreciate the input there, Cliff. We thank you for listening.
Thank you,
Have a
Cliff.
good day.
Thank you, Cliff, for calling in. We have another question for Larry Perry. Kathy in Lake Mary has a question about her 2011 GMC Yukon. Sounds like she's got a flat tire. Kathy, you're on with the Magic Mechanic.
Hi there, Larry. Enjoy your show. Been listening for a while.
Oh, thank you.
I have a 2011 Yukon. It sounds like from the rear left side that I have a flat tire when I'm driving. It's like a thumping sound. And I just had the brakes done not too long ago.
Okay. Now, does it progress with the speed of the vehicle?
Yes.
Okay. Kathy, listen, usually, on those, I have seen some axle bearings would get to the point where they would start making some noise. But, it's kind of like this. Usually when a bearing starts going bad, it gives you kind of a growling, howling type of noise. It's not really like a flat tire sound, and in the differential in the rear end of the vehicle, you've got a ring and a pinion back there that turns the rear axles, and, there's a lot of bearings, that are involved with this. And then you've got your drive shaft running to the back of it. But you indicated only on one side of the vehicle. And, from what you're describing, what a flat tire would sound like, there's really not anything that I can really come up with that would be for one side of the rear of that vehicle other than a possible bad tire. Because a bearing is going to make a different sound than that. A bearing is going to almost sound like a studded snow tire. It's going to give you a growling, howling sensation. The only other thing that I could think of that may give, if it's a two-piece drive shaft and uses a carrier, like on an extended Yukon, that might be something that could cause that type of noise, but it wouldn't be something that you would hear from just one corner of the vehicle like the left rear. My advice would be, Kathy, is, if it sounds like a tire issue, it might very well be a tire issue. A tire can get a knot on it. It can get a swollen area on it. And when you go down the road, of course, the faster you go, it'll get to the point where the complete circumference of the tire isn't even coming into contact with the road itself, and then that'll give you that flat tire slapping type of noise that you're hearing. But, my advice is to get that left rear jacked up, have somebody go all the way around that tire, look at the inside of it and the outside of it, make sure that there's no broken belts inside the tire or anything like that. That would be my first thing to tell you to check. But for the sound that you're describing, it's normally not a mechanical issue. It's usually a tire issue. There can always be a first time, but that tire has got to be inspected immediately. Don't take no long trips until you get this resolved. I'm a little worried about the tire. There could be something bearing-wise, but they normally don't make a noise like that. Get the tire checked. Let us know when you get a chance. Call us back and tell us how you made out. We appreciate your call. Have a safe weekend, Kathy.
Thank you, Kathy. We have Benny in Orlando who's got a 2017 Hyundai Accent, and it sounds like it's been stalling. Benny, you're on live with the Magic Mechanic.
Thank you so much, and I hope you can help me. Yes, I've been having a problem. The thing doesn't stop running, but if I'm at a light or have stopped and then get ready to go and push the accelerator, the thing just doesn't go. So I have to release the accelerator, push it down again, and it's getting worse and worse. Normally 2 times would do it, but now sometimes it takes 4 or 5 pushes to make it go. And then when it does get the fuel, which I guess it needs, then all of a sudden it goes off like a scalded duck, and I screech tires, and I'm thinking, oh my golly, what in the world is going on? And I have taken it to a Hyundai dealer, but they put it on one of those scanner things, and of course I have since been told that if it's not doing that when they put it on that machine, then nothing is going to show up. Yeah. So I'm just at a loss because it's getting worse, and I don't know what to do.
Yeah. Benny, this is extremely a dangerous situation. When you drive this car right now the way it is, you need to really, really, really be careful with it. There's not many things more dangerous than a car doing what you are describing. And I'll tell you what's going on with it. And usually when this happens, there's usually a check engine light or a service engine light that illuminates, and it usually stores a code so that if you take it to the dealer or whatever, they can diagnose it and see what's going on with it. In this case, I'm going to tell you, and I hate to say this, and I'm not trying to fan any flames here or anything else, you don't need to be driving that car. That car needs to go to a shop and it be driven until a technician duplicates what you're dealing with. And then make some repair, recommendations on it. I'm going to tell you what's going on with it. I don't need to have a code. I can't tell you why it's not setting a check engine light or service engine soon light. There's something weird there that should automatically come up on your dash when you experience this particular problem. See, years ago, everything from your gas pedal in your car going out to a throttle body or a carburetor in years past was always a cable or some type of linkage. And over years, as technology has come around, they quit doing that. Now all of your acceleration and deceleration, everything is done electrically. They call it fly-by-wire. And what they do is, on your gas pedal, all that gas pedal is just an electric potentiometer, so to speak. When you push down on it, all it does is send an electrical signal to an electronic throttle body motor that actually opens and closes, and that dictates how the engine's going to run, when it's going to run, how it's going to perform, how it's going to accelerate. Now, one of two things is happening here. That switch on the gas pedal is going bad, that potentiometer, or either the electronic part, that electronic throttle body that's on your engine there on the intake, is failing. One of those two is happening, and that's the reason when you give it gas, it's not going, and then when it does take off, you're going to wind up rear-ending somebody if you're in a traffic jam. I would try to get out from that. You know, if you need help with it, give us a call at Magic Mechanic. If need be, JD can put you in an inexpensive $8.99 a day rental vehicle. We'll drive it till it acts up, and most likely what I will probably prescribe is a new fuel gas pedal assembly and probably a new electronic throttle body. It's not the end of the world price-wise, but it's going to save you most likely from getting into an accident. You can't keep driving it like this because it's going to be you're going to wind up having a bad day because of it. You hit a kid, wind up on a sidewalk. Just be careful until you can get it into either us or a shop. But make sure you kind of explain what I have told you here, and that gives anybody else a clue. I appreciate your call, and be careful.
In the WDBO app, we're going to go through that segment. But first, here's the Magic Mechanic himself, Larry Perry.
Yeah, like you said, we do have several open lines, and if you'd like to jump on board, I guarantee you I will get your car question answered before the end of the program today. That number again is 844-580-WDBO. What's really funny is it's one of them days I've had almost 16 emails during the course of the program. And the just an unusual slow phone day. So, if you all want to hop on board and take advantage of it, like I said, I guarantee I'll get you in before the end of the program. 844-580-WDBO. All right, let's hear the open mic, and then we're going to get to some of these emails here, and we'll stay busy that way, I reckon. Go ahead with it.
Hi, Larry. Andy calling from Wisconsin. Did they get the oiling issue straightened out on that Pentastar Chrysler 3.6 engine yet? Thank you.
No, it's pretty much the same thing. That 3.6 Pentastar it just has the problem with the roller rockers. And what happens is, and what he's asking about is, I've gotten, this is no kidding, I've got it sitting here on my desk about the 3.6 Pentastar engines that we have discussed and placed these on our Magic Mechanic YouTube channel. I have 123 comments over this issue, which is pretty extensive, and a lot of people will know about this problem now where they didn't before, but at least The thing is, the oil that you use is the most important thing to try to prevent this problem from happening. And what winds up happening is, there's not really a good oiling passage, so to speak, to keep these rollers lubricated. There's no pressurized oil going to them. So these rollers on those rocker arms, on those 3.6s, and in most cases, especially if you're using 20-weight oils, there's just not enough viscosity, and the amount of oil that these rollers are getting isn't sufficient. So they're bound to be doomed. They're going to fail, and most of them do before you get 100,000 mile on those engines. Now, the bad part is a ticking engine is a ticking motor, but what happens is most folks don't know how much trouble they're into when you hear one of them 3.6 Jeeps and all these other vehicles that use these engines. I mean, it goes on and on and on. It's a huge situation. You've got Chrysler Pacificas, the Chrysler Voyagers, the Chrysler 300s, the Dodge Challengers, the Chargers, the Durangos, the Grand Cherokees, of course the Jeep Wranglers, I'm trying to read all of them here. But it's a huge issue, and what happens is, the Dodge ProMaster vans. Can you imagine how many of those they are out here? The only way to keep those rollers lubricated and to prevent having a major engine catastrophe is I recommend the AMSOIL for everything. But the biggest reason you need to consider running AMSOIL in these engines, see, the AMSOIL seeks out heat and friction. And that oil stays with anything that gets hotter than normal anything in the engine. And those roller tips on those rocker arms, they get real hot because there's just not enough oil volume going to those little tiny needle bearings to keep them lubricated. Whereas the AMSOIL will stay with that heat and friction and prevents these things from failing. I'm not going to say they're never going to fail, but I think you're looking at the difference. I've got one right here where the guy's talking about he's having to have the rockers replaced in his at 77,000 miles. And then, of course, he's asking his next question, will AMSOIL prevent this from happening again? And you know what? Chances are you'll probably get 3 or 4 times the mileage out of the engine before you'll have to do it again, or you may never have to do it. But it's the oiling design of that motor is just not sufficient, So, I hate to tell folks that because a lot of people like the new Gladiators and stuff like that. But, it's destined. Those particular parts are destined to fail, especially if you run a 20-weight oil and it's something besides a polyalpha olefin synthetic oil. So, to answer your question, you still got the same issue with the 3.6 engine.
All right, to the phone lines we go. We got some phone calls here during the open mic segment. Ron from Altamont Springs has a question on his 2017 Ford F-150. Ron, you're on with the Magic Mechanic.
Yeah, hey, Larry. I've got a 5-liter 2017 F-150.
Uh-huh.
And I've had trouble with the when I turn the key, the starter won't engage. And I've had it to the dealer twice. The first time they said they replaced the solenoid, and the second time they replaced the starter for $800 and something. Now it's done it again. They've had it a week, and they've yet to figure out what's causing it. Now that used to be such a simple problem. You could solve it in 5 minutes. It's either the battery or the solenoid or the ignition switch or the starter. So
no, wait a minute, Ron. Listen, the anti-theft system on that vehicle will prevent it from starting.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? Yes, sir. That anti-theft system, if for some reason or other that anti-theft system, and then let me explain this to you so you know, your key fob that you've got in that vehicle, I know that it'll usually tell you on the dash if the battery's low, but I would, by all means, make sure you got brand new batteries in at least both of your key fobs, number one. And then a person really needs to put the IDS on this thing and really go through that anti-theft system to see if there's anything historical been going on with it. I think they just missed this one completely. They swung a bat and they came up with a strike. Ron, what has to be done is when this problem is duplicated, a person is going to have to find out, okay, it's going to go to a relay. It's going to go through a starter relay to activate the starter solenoid. Well, the first thing a person's got to do is find out if there is voltage, from the ignition itself when you push the start button to that relay. And if there is, then a person is going to have to take voltage tests down at the solenoid on the starter. These are simple 12-volt tests with a 12-volt test light. No high-tech equipment, no swinging the bat at a curveball and missing, but that has to be determined to know whether you're dealing with something. Listen, if you're not getting power out to that relay, there's something in that anti-theft system that's preventing voltage from getting to the starter. It's that simple. So you can replace all the starters in the world and all the relays you want to, but if there's no voltage going to them when you hit your start button, and on that one there, think about it. There could be a bad brake light switch which doubles as a start safety system. Something along those lines. That's probably what you're dealing with if they've already replaced a $800 starter and the relay. Think about that. Those are all things that if you don't depress your brake pedal on that vehicle and you push that button, it's not going to start. What if there's a problem with that brake light switch that's causing it to not allow you to start? Maybe you've got intermittent brake lights and don't even know it. But something like that is what's most likely going on. It has to read your key fob. You see what I'm saying? Before it's going to allow voltage to travel through the anti-theft system. So there's things there that has got to be looked at, or at least voltage tests taken before you can even condemn the new parts they put on there. Because I have to be honest with you, I think they missed it completely. I don't even think it's in the ballpark. You know, so it sounds like they didn't do their due diligence as far as diagnosing this before they recommended that expensive starter. They put that on there hoping that would fix it, you know, and that's exactly what has happened. So that's pretty much where I'm going to have to leave you with that, Ron. If you need some expert help with it, I figure you know where you probably get it. I appreciate your call.
Thank you, Ron. We're going to move to David in Orlando. David, you have a question for the Magic Mechanic on your 2017 Chevy Silverado. You're live with Larry Perry.
Yeah, it's actually a 2007 Duramax diesel.
All right.
And I've been with these for like 30 years. I've never called in first time. But I just did the tie rods and the wheel bearings, and I had an alignment, and my ABS light will not go off.
Okay. Did this happen after you done the front end work, or was this something going on beforehand?
I went to the alignment people, and they told me it was probably a speed sensor. So I'm thinking maybe it's that little plug. Maybe the connection is dirty or something.
Yeah, that can happen. But on that one there, I'm thinking, is this a 2 or a 4-wheel drive?
It's 2-wheel.
Okay.
6.6 Duramax.
Well, you know, I'm going to, David, I think the hub bearings on that one has a integrated, well, I'm pretty sure it does. It's got an integrated reluctor in it. So it's actually a ring that, you know, the speed sensor has to pick up. You know, so that, and to be honest with you, the wheel hub bearing assemblies for that, it being a 2-wheel drive, probably came with a new wheel speed sensor on each one of them as well. So, you know, it needs to be scanned, and if it says left front or right front wheel speed sensor or whatever, that they probably got a defective wheel hub bearing assembly. Do you see what I'm saying?
Because I did get a scan when I was at the alignment place, and he told me it was like a EGH or EGR, some kind of code.
Yeah, but that's not going to cause the other issue. I mean, EGR on that, it wouldn't surprise me, but that's not going to cause a brake system issue, or you know, that's not going to cause that problem. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, he said it was a speed sensor, so.
Yeah.
So it's possible I got defective wheel bearings. That's what I was afraid of.
Yeah, I think that were these something that you bought online?
No, I actually got them at O'Reilly. Their Precision was the name brand.
Okay, yeah, that's not a bad brand. That's not a bad brand at all.
Yeah.
But most likely
nice.
either the connector going into it, something may have happened there, David. I mean, we see that all the time. You know, where you unplug the connector off of them, and then when you put it back in, maybe one of the pins got bent or something along those lines. But it's easy enough to diagnose because you don't have to take anything apart. You know, when we scan these things, we drive them, and we can sit there and look at the data and see what every wheel speed sensor on the truck is doing. You know, so that tells us if the connections are good and if the wheel speed sensors are operating properly. That way you're not pulling stuff apart and putting it back together and crossing your fingers and hope that it works. But yeah, you let us know if we can help you. If not, take it back to the folks that did the bearings on it and just tell them what you're up against. Hopefully they'll give you a hand with this. I appreciate your call, David.
I think filler. So where you place the gas pump into the vehicle that leads to the gas tank. We were trying to figure out what would you call that. Fuel filler is what I've heard on automotive shows.
Yeah. And most of the newer ones don't use a gas cap. Most of them just use the actual flap in there that actually seals once you put the fuel in the vehicle. Number one, and I get that question a lot. If there is a problem with that not sealing correctly, once you put fuel in your vehicle, your car will set a check engine light, because what it'll say is there's an evaporative fuel system leak, meaning fuel vapor would be leaking out of it, and it would set a code. This is one of those things. And then the other one, I think she had mentioned that something about the exhaust system. Cleaning the exhaust system. Mm-hmm. I think she mentioned that she actually asked, is this something I should be doing by hand? I'm going to tell you, I think they were kidding around with you, to be honest with you. I would really hate to think that a vehicle dealer of any sort would say something like that to get you to spend money on ridiculous recommendations. I don't, I wouldn't ain't going to say anything bad about anybody because I don't know all the circumstances, of course. But in this particular case, I'm just going to kind of write it off as that. I think they were kidding with you. At least I hope they were. But in your defense, if you're talking to somebody that's not mechanically inclined, and there is any type of trust there, and not everybody would know when somebody was trying to sell you a muffler bearing or something just absolutely off the wall, just something crazy that doesn't even exist, or a service like that. I would hope that wasn't the case, and if you're sitting back laughing, that's not funny. That's not funny. And Rishi, you do not need those services done. I can't even fathom what they were even talking about. It's ridiculous. Folks, if you ever run into a question like that, I'm as easy as Larry at magicmechanic.com. Don't get taken. And car repair, as expensive as it is nowadays, isn't no joking matter. Folks, thanks for tuning in. You listeners, customers, and show sponsors are the reason I do the show and have a job. You can tune in every Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, Central Florida, on 107.3 FM. Go to HD Radio 96.52 and AM 580. Worldwide at WDBO.com, and click Listen Live, or just tell your smart speaker to play WDBO Radio every Saturday at 3 p.m. If you need help with your vehicle, you can always call Magic Mechanic at 407-629-2661. Visit our website, magicmechanic.com, or you can also email your car questions directly to me, Larry at magicmechanic.com. Don't forget to check out our Magic Mechanic YouTube. And until next week, be safe in and out of your car, and we'll see you back here next Saturday at 3 p.m. Everybody be safe.
Thanks, Larry.
You're welcome.
WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and...
Hi, folks. Larry Perry here. For automotive information, maybe you got automotive questions on cars, trucks, vans, SUVs. Maybe you're thinking about purchasing a used vehicle, and maybe you just want my opinion. Tune in to the Magic Mechanic radio show every Saturday, 3 to 5 p.m. on WDBO.com. Also, tune in to our Magic Mechanic YouTube channel, and don't forget to subscribe. And we'll all get together, maybe fix a few cars while we're at it.